So this the face shape, um, sometimes I find that if you use, for instance, the smaller, harder key light, like you're gonna really cut shadows. You're gonna cut the jawline, the cheekbones, right? So if someone has a really strong features, that I know is going to look good with them. I know it's going to be great with them. However, if their face maybe doesn't have those stronger kind of features, then I want a light that's a little bit less um, small and hard. So I'll use something a little bit softer, maybe a little bit larger. Sometimes it depends on the age of the person and how much, maybe how many lines they might have on their face. But I mean, when I was early on into this portrait journey, I used to just always light women with that, more like a triangle light. But the more or like people of a certain age with the triangle light, because it fills in, lines and shadows or whatever. But the more that I do it now, and I just really realize that it is just face by face. There's a lot of factors. Sometimes you might get someone who's older that looks really amazing in the harder light because it kind of brings out all of that detail in their face, and it can be very flattering. And so I'll decide in that case. If I have someone also who's really fair, then I don't want to hit them with a lot of light. I want it to be softer and more diffuse. I don't want to blow out the skin tones. And I'll inform the backdrop decisions based on this a little bit too. One thing that people don't realize is that, well, whatever colors you introduce into your portrait will affect the skin tones if you're not careful. So if they're wearing this is why we tell people, well, don't wear a bright red shirt because your skin will look red. So sometimes if I have someone who's a very fair skin tone, I want to put them in front of a warmer backdrop because it'll add a little bit of warmth to them. So those are the kinds of decisions I'm making. If I have someone with a very wide face, then I will shoot close with the 50 and intentionally flatten it out a little bit, right? Because if you shoot them at 135, then their face will look wider and flatter than it actually is. So all of these decisions are things that the more people you photograph, the more faces you see, the more you can kind of make like an internal library that you can inform the next shoot much better than the one before it. And then, we shoot enough people, you realize that a lot of people have similar kinds of faces, similar kind of shapes of their different features. And then you just start to instinctively know, okay, if I put this person this way, or if I pose them that way, or if I use this kind of a light, it's going to look great with them. And then at the end of the day, I'll also just throw everything at them sometimes. So, because, often you just, like we said at the beginning, you'll find a happy accident can happen where you're not sure if they like it or that they will like it, and they wind up loving it. And we don't see people the way they see themselves. And this is tough for us as photographers, because generally we see them in a better light than they see themselves, right? Because we're always our most vocal critics of our own features, of our own face. And then we see ourselves in mirror image all the time, like when you brush your teeth, when you look at your phone. So when someone takes your photo and you see it on the screen, you're actually seeing your face the way it looks to everyone else, as far as it's reversed. So people can be very critical. However, there's also people out there who, and God bless them, they just love their face. And so it's like they know that they have maybe a strong chin, or, a nose that's not a traditional shape or whatever. And they love that about themselves. So I find that it's really a balancing act of wanting to make people look their best, but also remember that you have this unique face in front of you. And a lot of times it's cool because I'll get people who they just are in love with their face. And it's really, that's the best, because they're open, and they're very much going to give you genuine natural expressions. It's much more rare to get that, however, but they're out there too. So I try to keep an open mind, and I try to be very non-judgmental when I take people's pictures, because if I see a feature that I think to myself, well, this feature I want to try and minimize, sometimes, usually they'll agree with me. I would say 80% of the time, but there's 20% of the time where they're totally cool with the way they look. And so I think that's awesome. We should all be like that.
Absolutely. It's, I always say this, like the standard phrase, that people use when they walk into my studio, like literally every single person the first words they utter is usually, "I hate having my photo taken,"
Yes.
and it's like, okay, well, we'll have to change your mental attitude. I
Yep.
mean, usually by the time they leave, they've had a very good time, and that's the thing.
Right.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about posing and about getting expression. So you mentioned it just now. Um, the best lit portrait, in my view, is worth nothing if the subject doesn't give you something, an
Right.
expression. It might just be, a particular pose and angle, but it's got to be something in that image that makes that portrait speak, so to say. How do you how do you get your clients to give you what it is that you're looking for?
Um, this is the hardest part, I think, of portraiture, because I'm with you. You can have a portrait that's lit beautifully. All the T's and the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, but if it doesn't have an expression that says something, then you're missing the main ingredient. So I find that I like to meet people where they're at, and then um, get them to kind of maybe do something that they would normally do. So whether it's a smile for someone who never smiles, or not a smile, something more serious for someone who isn't. But I just like to get to know them as well. So I make sure that I connect with them on some level. And I mean, you got to just be a personable person. And I don't think you need to have a certain kind of personality. However, you do just need to be yourself and connect with people. So I'm just me, and I have a very, you know, unique personality, like we all do. And so I just try to be myself with them. And I find that people will open up to you when they see that you're open to them, and that you're just, there to share the same goals. Now, if it's a corporate headshot person like the one you described, and we just need to get them to smile, or we need to get them to just relax, then I'll joke around with them. I'll be silly. I'll tell them jokes. I'll ask them about their family or about their pets, things like that, to get them to forget that you're staring at them with a camera, because you want to make it so that they forget that they're getting their picture taken. So that's more of the technical way for those kinds of clients. But when I'm working with my actors and my artists, artistic clients, I like a little bit of uneasiness. I like a little bit of emotion. Sometimes I'll talk to them about their lives and things that maybe, I feel like and I'm sure you get this too, Kirsten, is that we're sort of psychiatrists in a way, or psychologists as
Yeah.
photographers. I'll have people come in here, man, and they'll open up to me because I guess they just feel safe here to do it, and I'm a good listener. And so when they open up to you, sometimes they'll tell you things about their lives, or about their family, or about their history. And if you can capture that moment with your camera, um, it's a brilliant thing, and it's something that I think is really separates those who really can do this at the highest level, from those who are kind of somewhere in the middle. Um, Often, but that's how I'll approach. If I want, because I like the dramatic expressions too, so I want the more emotional sort of vibes from people in my portrait work. That's just what I like. I have a quick story. I was one of my clients is Ron Carter, the jazz bassist. And if you don't know who Ron is, he's a living jazz legend. He played with Miles Davis, played with everybody's on 2,500 records. And I've shot him a number of times now, but I was in the dressing room with him at Jazz at Lincoln Center, just doing some casual portraits. And at one point, I just put my camera down, and I was just chatting with him. And he started opening up a little bit about some of the musicians who he misses, that he played with, who aren't with us anymore. And then he just kind of went into a very introspective sort of place. And I just lifted my camera up and took a picture of him in that moment. And I couldn't have done that if I didn't connect with him, because he would have not liked me taking that picture, because he was opening up to me. But I had developed a rapport with him. And also he knew, like, when your client knows that you're on their side, and that you just want the best for them, just like they want for themselves, you'd be amazed how they open up to you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.